Hey guys, I'm Gary and this is a Killed Runner. So here we are again in the dining room for another little look at some of the drams and samples that I've got lying around. First time popping on the channel and you like what you see, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the like button for the video, and if you want you can click on the wee bell icon and that will give you notifications as new things are added to the channel. Okay, so we've got up the wee sample tonight. I'm going to get it in the glass, then we'll have a wee chat about it. So what I've done is picked up a Glen Moray. It is a distillery miniature. There. That's a good plug. As I said, it's actually a distillery miniature. It came in a pack with 4 other miniatures from the distillery. And this one is Glen Moray 10-year-old fired oak. So what is that? Okay. The master distiller at Glen Moray at the time, a guy called Cool, he wanted to try and replicate a sort of an American bourbon feel to the whiskey. So what happened is the whiskey has been aged for 10 years in ex-bourbon casks. And then it was given, or it was transferred and given a finish in what's known as heavily charred casks. For those of you that are familiar with casks and how they're made and constructed, you'll know what we mean by the charring of the casks. But just as a wee tip towards that, for those of you that are maybe unfamiliar with it, we'll grab the little thing here. So a whiskey cask, for it to get its shape, etc., one of the things to do is the heat, or the fire flame inside the cask. And what it does is it creates a layer of burnt on the inside of each individual portion of the cask, which are called staves. What they talk about with charring is the depth of the burn on the inside of these staves. So you might have, without going too deeply into it, there's different levels of charring, and they have a sort of an official index of the levels of the charring. But just to say, you can have it sort of lightly charred up to heavily charred, so very finely burnt up to really quite heavily burnt. What that does to an extent is allows the stave to accept more of the whiskey into the stave. So if it was only lightly charred, the whiskey won't seep as much into the stave. If it's heavily charred, it'll allow the whiskey to seep a little bit more into the stave. And a lot of the flavour comes from how deep the whiskey goes, or the spirit goes inside these staves, comes back out and moves around, and that's part of the maturation process, is letting the flavour come from the wooden oak staves into the spirit that's contained within it. Not very well, not really in depth there, but you get the idea. So what they've done is, after it's 10 years in the oak bourbon cask maturation, they've transferred it into casks that have been heavily charred. So there's been a lot of burning done inside these casks, with the intention to try and almost replicate how bourbon, how American whiskies are matured, and they must be matured in new oak casks out in America that are being charred, whereas over here most of the casks have been used before, and a lot of them come from America anyway. So that's, yeah, a wee touch on that there, guys. And if it's not clear, just let me know in the comments and I'll try and explain it a little bit better next time. So yeah, this is a 10-year-old whiskey. And as I said, you know, matured next bourbon and then finished in heavily charred. And let's see what it's actually done to it. And if I remember off, it's a 40% ABV, so it's your standard sort of minimum level on the alcohol. Straight away I'm getting that vanilla sweetness that you'll get from a lot of Speyside whiskies, particularly ones that have been through the bourbon casks. There's a lot of sort of dried fruit, raisins, things like that coming through on it. Quite fruity actually. There's almost a toffee, candy, fudge-like smell in it as well. Very sweet nose. Very pleasant. I like the nose on that, really do. Bananas straight away on the palate. But that banana going back to the nose, and I said it was a toffee sort of thing there. If you've had banoffee pie, you know, that caramel toffee sort of side of things. Yeah, that's really quite pleasant. There's a citrus essence in there as well, maybe more orange than lemon. It's got that sweeter orange more than the bitter lemon side of things. Maybe even getting something like cherries coming through for me, with that vanilla again on the nose, and there's a vanilla in there. I had a flapjack recently. It was a cherry flapjack with a vanilla, I don't know, coating, icing sort of thing on the top. It's really reminding me of that sort of cereal, cherry, sweet honey sticking the flapjack together, and that vanilla coating over the top with a bit of banoffee pie on the side. It's actually really, really sweet, really, really nice. Not overly sweet. I should stress it's not too sweet, but there's a nice sweetness to it. There's nothing really bitter to it. It's quite a sharp finish. Quite a sweet finish. You know, there's no that 40%. I'm not expecting a burn. I'm not getting a burn. I'm actually really quite enjoying that. I think with this deep charring, this heavy charring, I think it's released a lot of that sort of vanilla bourbon style essence into that. You know, I could quite associate that with a bourbon whiskey. Not an expensive dram either, guy, you know, sort of 35 quid. It's not one you see in a lot of supermarkets. You're probably going to have to go either direct to the distillery or one of your special online retailers for it. I think if you like a slightly sweeter, uncomplicated dram, then yeah, Glen Moray, 10-year-old, heavily charred. Is it heavily charred? Fired oak is the actual name they give it. Is bloody nice. Sponge it. Really nice.